Hello and welcome to our webcast for March 9, 2018. I wish it was close to 17, 2018. Okay. My name is Christian Lebré and this is Amy Hasbrook, the director of Toujours Vivant, Not Dead Yet.
Hello.
And also joining us, Taylor Hyatt, our policy analysis and outreach coordinator.
Hi, everyone.
Hi. Toujours Vivant, Not Dead Yet is a non-religious organization by and for people with disability and our allies. Our goal is to inform, unify, and give voice to disability rights opposition to assisted suicide, euthanasia, and other ending of life practices that discriminates against people with disabilities. Today's topic we have only but it's a
good one.
Good one and a big
juicy one.
And that's a good one. Okay. Disability stereotypes and assisted suicide. So Amy Hasbrook will talk about it, and I will help it.
This week we're exploring stereotypes of disability. We'll be talking about what stereotypes are, and how they've changed over time. Because also, especially the purpose of stereotypes. People don't often talk about that, but that's one definition of a stereotype is a popular but fixed and oversimplified idea about something or someone, often having a negative connotation, a negative implication or idea.
Sometimes it could be useful because it's simplified.
Well,
most of the time it's negative.
Well, sometimes there are positive stereotypes, but they always have a negative effect on the people that they're directed toward.
Yeah.
Even if they seem like they're positive, what they do is they create distance between people and make it hard for people to understand the real reality of what somebody lives.
Stereotypes are a form of populism.
Well, yeah. Since most people are produced by and for the non-disabled majority, disability is shown from the outside. In a 1992 article, disability scholar Colin Barnes identified the most common stereotypes of disability from literature, television, music, and film.
So the stereotypes are everywhere.
And it's in children's literature, adult literature, television, cartoons, everything. And we didn't go through all of them, but we picked out a few of the most important ones. The first one is pitiable and pathetic. The perfect example of this stereotype is Tim Cratchit from Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol.
Poor me.
Better known as Tiny Tim. He doesn't say poor me.
Oh, sorry.
He doesn't say poor me. He says, God bless us.
Bless us, everyone.
Yeah.
And how many people watching could tell us what Tiny Tim's last name was? That's the most interesting.
Almost everybody, because it's shown every year, many times of year.
Right, but they only ever refer to him as Tiny Tim. They don't refer to him as Tim Cratchit.
No.
That's why I used that. That's why I said his name was Tim Cratchit.
Yeah, the name is a little bit bizarre.
Right.
Kind of
Tim
sounding Cratchit. Yeah.
This stereotype of the brave and cheerful but incapacitated disabled child was especially used by charities run by non-disabled people to raise money to fund research to find cures for disabilities such as muscular dystrophy. And telethons have definitely been going the way of the dinosaur these past few years, which is a good thing because they more than good, really.
Yeah, the kind of TV show what is the name of this artist?
Jerry
Lewis. Jerry Lewis was doing.
Yeah. Okay, the second stereotype is sinister and evil. In children's stories and adult literature, you can always tell who's the bad guy. He's the one with the hunchback and the eye patch, the scar, the wooden leg, or the prosthetic hand, etc. Not only is disability an outward sign of the villain's evil and violent nature, it also stands for his bitterness about being disabled, which drives him to commit crimes. And I was also thinking of Harvey Two-Face from the Batman movie.
So they are still in the film industry. They are still in comic book. They are still everywhere.
Right, exactly. From the Bible to Captain Hook to most of the villains in the James Bond films.
Oh yeah. Did you remember what is the name?
Jaws.
His friend is Jaws. Jaws.
Yeah. Okay, we got it.
Yeah, but you see that they are everywhere, and sometimes they are kind of very familiar for everybody.
Right, and that's the thing. It's like as soon as you see that the guy has a limp or whatever, you know he's a baddie. This stereotype has been used throughout history to justify the killing and mistreatment of visibly disabled people, and that's an important thing to remember, sort of getting to the purpose of stereotypes.
Yeah.
Okay, the next one is the dependent and therefore a burden on non-disabled people and society. In this view, disabled people are helpless and must be cared for by non-disabled people. It focuses on the medical model of disability, where disabled people as objects of medical care, where the fix is provided by medical professionals, and disabled people have no expertise in managing their own lives. The social model of disability, on the other hand, where public policies, environmental barriers, and attitudes combine with a person's limitations to disable them, recognizes that with social supports, disabled people can achieve the same level of autonomy and independence as non-disabled people.
Yeah, so the most of the problem to disabled people came from the society itself.
Right.
They are not taking, the society does not taking care of a big chunk of the population.
Right.
With what they call it, the baby boomer, okay, happening to become older, a lot of them will become disabled, and we will be closer to 25% and maybe more as disabled people. But the society doesn't improve itself to furnish the normal thing to those people.
Right, but the stereotype is that disabled people can't do anything. They can't do anything to help themselves. They
Which
can't,
is not true at all.
It's not true.
We are the proof of it.
Right.
We achieve something
right.
without helping from anybody able.
No. The burden or dependence stereotype was popularized by the eugenics movement and is seen most often in media coverage of the murders of disabled people, and is an important driver of the assisted suicide and euthanasia movement.
Yeah.
So when you see reports of parents who kill their disabled children, the parents say, oh, it was so stressful to have a disabled child. We didn't have any services, blah, 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 blah.
For us, so it takes so many times, so much money, so.
Right.
And at the end, it doesn't receive any the punishment, any punishment, or very few punishment, and everybody forget the disabled person was killed.
Right, exactly. It's the parents, the non-disabled parents, who end up being portrayed as the victims.
It's a transfer of the sympathy from the disabled to the people who support them.
Right, exactly. And that's because the stereotype is that disabled people are such a terrible burden.
Oh, yeah.
And that they ruin marriage, having a disabled child ruins marriages and that kind of thing. And okay, so it's an important driver of the assisted suicide movement as well. Okay, the next stereotype is the freak or object of ridicule.
Just look at me.
Whether it's the Elephant Man or Mr. Magoo, disabled people are often shown either as freaks of nature or as inept objects of ridicule. From Monty Python's Gumby Theater to Donald Trump, comedians and politicians get laughs by mocking disabled people.
Okay, just tell me, Trump is disabled or is mocking disabled people? Because it could be both.
No, he's not disabled.
No, it's not disabled. Are you sure?
The point is, he is not diagnosed or identified as disabled.
Okay. But it is very visible.
Well, whatever.
Whatever.
He's not diagnosed or identified as disabled.
Okay.
But
that's the problem with him, though. People make fun of him and try to guess what his medical condition is instead of going after his bad policies or his character.
Anyway, thinking like that, if he's not if he's disabled, he succeeds by himself to reach the presidency, at least.
Right. Well, he isn't the first disabled president. Put it that way. We had
we have been John F. K. was
and Abraham Lincoln had bipolar disorder.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, an audience that is gawking or laughing at someone is putting distance between themselves and the object of their amusement. They are nothing like the person. And they have no chance or obligation to learn about disability from people who live it firsthand.
Yeah, when you take distance from people, you could not learn anything about them.
Right, and that's the whole reason that people are turned into objects. Yeah. So you don't have to consider their feelings.
So it's easier to not take care of them or take any...
Right. Again, the stereotype lets non-disabled people justify treating disabled people poorly.
Yeah.
Okay, the next stereotype is what we call the super cripple. When talented disabled people are held up as examples for having overcome their disabilities or having extraordinary abilities in films such as The Theory of Everything, My Left Foot, The Scent of a Woman, this creates the stereotype of the super cripple. And there's two pieces. One is the overcoming part, and the other is that, it's as if all blind people have extraordinary sense of hearing or, can tell where they're going, in a car just by listening and that kind of stuff. It's like, no.
No. They are normal people.
We're not all piano tuners. Come on. Let's see. Inspiration porn is the related practice of heaping excessive praise on a disabled person for ordinary activities, like going shopping or to work. The super crip stereotype sets up an expectation that all disabled people should be able to succeed despite their disabilities. And it doesn't recognize that the limiting effects of discrimination and barriers. Inspiration porn sets up a standard of behavior for disabled people that they should always be brave and plucky and never become discouraged or angry at the discrimination they face. Otherwise, they might fall into the next stereotype. And that's, the idea of people, if somebody complains about a lack of access, the non-disabled people, oh, he's just bitter about his disability. Nah.
And taking the fact that we came from one to another thing, there is one thing that you must understand. Many stereotypes could happen at the same time in the film. Okay,
right, exactly.
We just separate the type.
Yeah. We're just giving examples, and some of these films have more than one.
And while we're on overcoming. We were just having a debate, the three of us, about promotional materials for the Paralympics. Their slogan this year is "Greatness is rare." Well, if everybody on the ski hill is great, what does that make the rest of us? Chopped liver?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so the next stereotype is the bitter, self-pitying, our own worst enemy stereotype. And this story begins with a person who is having trouble adjusting to a new disability. He needs a non-disabled person to set him on the road out of self-pity to acceptance and productivity. This is shown in films such as Born on the 4th of July, Passion Fish, and Coming Home. The stereotype gives society an excuse to ignore the frustration expressed by disabled people at barriers and discrimination by chalking it up to the person's own lack of adjustment. Oh, there's not really a problem here. He's just got a chip on his shoulder. It also paints the non-disabled person as hero for helping the disabled person see the light. It's interesting to note that twist in this plot, which has become popular over the last 20 years, salvation through suicide. The disabled person is no longer required to get on with his life. A heroic disabled person, such as Maggie in $1 Million Baby or Will in Me Before You, will die rather than give up his non-disabled view of himself. And that's a really dangerous stereotype.
Oh, yeah, that's probably the most dangerous.
Yeah.
Because everybody will use it. Everybody who is interested to the death of disabled people will use it.
Right. We're going to talk about that more next week.
Yeah.
Okay, another stereotype is sexually abnormal. And if you believe the media, disabled people are either asexual, impotent, until helped by a non-disabled person, or sexual predators. The pathetic disabled person is forever childlike, with no sexual feelings, functions, or needs. This stereotype applies more to disabled women than men, who are often shown as bitter and self-pitying because they have lost their masculinity. That is, until a non-disabled woman helps them get it back by having sex with them. The other stereotype is applied especially to people with cognitive and psychiatric disabilities, and that is a person who cannot control their sexual feelings and is therefore a danger to the public, such as Eric in The Phantom of the Opera. So these are, disabled people are dangerous. You don't want disabled people in your neighborhood because they're dangerous. They're psychos. They're all predators, and they're always raping people, blah, blah, blah. And that's a lot where this idea of not in my backyard comes from, where people have troubles placing group homes because the neighbors protest.
Yeah.
Creating stereotypes about the sexuality of a minority group is a common practice of oppression and has been used to justify the killing, jailing, and institutionalization of Black and disabled people over the centuries. The asexual stereotype was used to justify the Ashley treatment, named for a disabled girl who had surgery to prevent her maturing into an adult.
This is a very bitter culture.
Yeah.
And if anyone's been watching the Me Too campaign, there haven't been many disabled women featured, and I'm wondering if that's because you can't be catcalled if nobody thinks you're attractive.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I didn't say much about my experience, but I did contribute to Me Too. I did say Me Too and put up the hashtag and everything. But yeah, I mean, there's an assumption that disabled women don't ever have sexual relations because nobody wants them. But that doesn't take into account the fact that disabled people are much more likely to be sexually abused than non-disabled.
Exactly. There's also.
So the other kind of stereotype is normal. In TV shows such as Star Trek, The Next Generation, disability is portrayed as a normal, accepted part of life as long as the technology keeps working properly. In other words, the person is this is sort of the rehabilitation model of disability. As long as you can adapt the person to the environment, and then it's okay, you know, to have a disability, as long as you're adapting.
And it is individually.
Right.
But the society doesn't adapt itself to a group of disabled people, a big group, even if it's very, very big, okay?
Right.
Like old people.
Right. Yeah. The disabled character is not looking for a cure, doesn't have a chip on his shoulder, and isn't freakish. If disabled people are just like everyone else, however, there is no reason for them to be mistreated or excluded from society. But this line of thinking also means that nothing needs to be done to change attitudes or remove barriers. That's the problem with it.
They are normal.
The denial of disability is an important aspect of identity and also has profound social and psychological effects. And, you know, the experience is different for people who acquire disabilities versus those who have disabilities from birth. I have both, so I've gone through both sides of it. And yeah, it is pretty different when you acquire a disability, but it is part of you, and if you try to deny it, that hurts you. So there you go. Okay, since Professor Barnes' paper was written 25 years ago, there have been important steps toward barrier removal in transit, housing, and other areas of daily life. Although these developments have brought more people with disabilities into the public sphere, they have only caused a shift and not a decrease in the use of stereotypes. So it's only changing. They're not going away. We don't have quite so many baddies being disabled and that kind of thing. But, you know, there's still plenty of those. And we don't have quite so many, you know, people with deformities being monsters and that kind of thing. But they're still there.
Yeah, there is still some country who
have those
kind of shows still exist.
Yeah.
India, in some place in India.
Right. In the Western countries, we have people who misbehave as our freak shows now.
Yeah.
Because we are steeped in ableist imagery, it's hard to realize or admit that we carry these images with us. The danger related to assisted suicide arises when a person becomes disabled as an adult and suddenly applies all those negative stereotypes about disability to themselves. It makes the adjustment process that much more difficult. So if you suddenly, oh my God, I'm one of them. Oh, you know, how are you going to have a good self-image? Okay. The solution to this ignorance might seem simple at first. If non-disabled storytellers can't get it right, disabled people should be telling their own stories, right? Right. But like women, people of color, Indigenous people, and LGBT folks, disabled people face discrimination when looking to take their place in front of or behind the camera.
Yeah. Every group who are not fit to standard is discriminated.
Right. And you know, the media are still controlled mostly by white guys.
And the standard that I talk about is white and let's say a kind of majority group who is good looking and white and you know.
Right. And those are the stories that are told about good looking white people.
And it's carrying by the press and the television and film and so on.
Right. Right. As these other groups discovered, getting rid of stereotypes like the ditzy blonde or the alcoholic Indian is not easy because they are used to maintain the social order. So you know, obviously there's been some progress. There are more people of color in the on TV and in the movies now than it used to be, but there's still very stereotyped roles for the most part.
Do you think this discrimination happens between disabilities as well?
Oh yeah.
I hate to say this, but I've been called one of the pretty ones. Easy to pay attention to someone like me who is white with a mild to moderate physical disability and not someone with multiple minority identifications with a speech disability, let's say.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely a hierarchy in the disability community, and I'm not
like there is a kind of hierarchy in Black people. You are less Black and more Black. You know, it's existing. We know what.
Right. So yeah, it definitely exists in the disability movement. I don't know how much it's applied to that. I think sometimes people with one disability might buy into the stereotypes about people with other kinds of disabilities, just out of the same kind of ignorance too. So, okay, next week we'll talk more about the connection between stereotypes, violence against disabled people, and medical killing. So that's something you can look forward to, some happy talking. Okay. If you want more information about the subjects that we talk about here, you could go to our Facebook page at facebook.com/toujours vivant not dead yet, all one word. Visit our website at tvndy.ca. You can email us at info@tv-ndy.ca, or you can follow us on Twitter @TVNDY. Thanks to Taylor for helping out, and thanks to Christiane also.
Thank you.
We'll see you all next time. Bye.
See you. Take care. Bye.